Canine Boot Camp. Mazakin's over there and Gage is right here. Today we're going to be going over how to get your dog to hug you when sitting or standing and how to get your dog to tuck. So to get your dog to tuck, you can use a tight corner like that, and then you're basically just going to tell them to lay down. They're going to have to figure out how to do that. Come on. Lay down. And then you can also kind of direct him. Come this way. Good boy. He's not really going to be able to go into a tight tuck. His legs are bothering him today. That's basically all you're going to do though, is you're just going to set up a corner. You can also use chairs like these. You could do this. You could pull that out and that's like a little corner that you could practice into. Gage wouldn't fit there, but Mazakin probably could do it right there. So you're just going to use a corner and have them lay down in it. And then you can use a treat to kind of guide them into a closer tuck. Some dogs are just going to tuck naturally. Mazakin usually lays in a pretty tight ball, but Gage was always wanted to be drawn out. I always did allow him to. You don't have to teach your dog to tuck. It's good to teach them it, but you don't always have to use it if you can just keep them out of the way. So with Mazakin, even though she will tuck, I usually just try to keep her out of the way more than I try to make her tuck. So that's a good thing to note too. Pretty simple though. Corner, guide them how you want them. If you have to move them around, you can. Just be careful with how you're moving them, because getting them into that ball, they should really be doing it themselves so that they can properly adjust their hips and their legs. Okay, so now we'll go over hug. Mazakin does know this, so if it seems like she's picking it up pretty fast, that's because she knows how to do it. So hug, thank you, thank you. Hug is typically, good girl. Hug is typically something that some dogs will use to alert you. Sometimes it's just a comfort thing. So what are you gonna do, Mazakin? Here, up, 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 up. Yes, thank you. You're just gonna start with that and have them come up. Most people that will like pound the couch to get their dog to come up onto the couch or wherever they want them. You're basically going to apply that same logic to this. You're just going to take a treat. And then you could say hugs, whatever command you want to use for it. Hugs, hugs, yes, thank you, thank you, thank you, yes, thank you. And I'm helping her down because at her age, it's always good to know, especially in larger breeds, you don't really want them jumping around a lot. It helps to prevent joint issues in the future. So as much as you can prevent them from jumping and using a lot of force onto their legs, it's good to try to prevent it. Thank you. Again, though, it's going to be hard to prevent it because they're puppies and they want to jump around and run around. So just try to keep impact down as much as you can. And with her breed mixes, elbow dysplasia and hip dysplasia are both very likely, so I always like to keep that in mind. That's basically all you're going to do though for when you're standing up and you want to hug. You just tap up here and you say hug. Yes, thank you, thank you. Good job, good girl. I'm going to help her down. And that's basically all it is. And then we have a sitting hug. So a sitting hug, basically all you're going to do is a lot like how I would teach DPT in a sitting position. So you're just going to go, that's the wrong way. Up, 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 up. Good job, good girl. Basically all you're going to do, you're just going to learn them up here. Mazakin tried to go under my legs because she knows the command leg, which means I want her to go under my legs. And she thought I was pointing down. Good girl. There we go. But that's basically it. It's all pretty simple. Some dogs may struggle with it a lot, especially if they're not much of a jumper. If you do teach hug though, especially when you're teaching in a young puppy, even getting them to come up on your legs like this, you want to make sure they're not just going to do that to any stranger. She's still learning that she can't just go and jump on everyone because she loves people. So seeing people is like the ultimate happiness for her. So it's very important to make sure they're not going to do it to other people because most people don't like your dog jumping up on them. It's not very fun to deal with, especially if you have a bigger dog. So in bigger dogs, it's especially dangerous if they're jumping up on strangers because they could jump up on a kid, and even though they're not trying to hurt the kid, 115 pounds of weight going on like a 30-pound kid is going to knock that kid down pretty hard. Even in smaller dogs that are like 15 pounds, if they come at a young enough kid, they can still knock it down and hurt it on accident. So it's important to make sure they're not doing that and they're not learning that as a bad habit. We want them to only do it on command, with most things. Mazakin, come here. I mean, that's about it, really. That was a pretty simple video. There are quite a few different things that you could do to teach tuck. That's just the most effective way that I found. And it appears to be a common thing that most people like to teach their dog that way. I think there are a few other videos on how to teach your dog to tuck or go into a ball, however they want to say it. So if you want to look at different techniques, you can if your dog is struggling with it. With hugs, the only reason I would really find it to be difficult for some dogs is if they don't really like to jump up on you or they don't really like putting their paws on you. In that case, it's going to be a little bit harder to teach them. You may just have to entice them more and start with baby steps. If you had to start with baby steps, because your dog isn't a huge fan of jumping, it doesn't really like putting his paws on you, whatever. So instead, you would just start with baby steps and just kind of get their nose to come up to you, just getting them used to body contact with you. And then you just slowly start to introduce more. You can start putting their head up. Good girl, good girl. And then see if you can get a paw, so teach them paw. Thank you, good girl. So you would teach them paw, and then you would start getting that paw closer. Paw, paw, thank you. And eventually you should just be able to point, paw, good job, thank you. And then maybe you can start getting them to come up. It may be a little bit of a longer process. Some dogs may just never end up wanting to jump up on you. It may be uncomfortable for them. Definitely recommend making sure that you check that over with a vet because it could be a hip problem, especially in larger breeds. Unfortunately, that's the side effect to having big cuddle bugs. They do have a lot more health problems. So making sure it's not a joint problem is very, very important, especially if it seems like the dog may be in pain and is having problems trying to get up. Those are huge signs of something being wrong with the dog's joints. So definitely get them checked out by a vet if it seems like they're really struggling to hop up. Anyways, it's important to know if it's a health issue. Stiffness is a huge sign of that. If there's any sign of pain, whether it be whimpering, panting, those types of signs of pain. If the dog is in joint pain, sometimes they will look at their back feet, and that seems weird, but it's actually a pretty common thing for most different types of pains. The dog doesn't know how else to soothe it, so they just lick their back feet to kind of distract themselves. So it's important to know different symptoms, and you can always look it up online, symptoms of different joint issues in dogs. Definitely make sure it's not a health issue. Don't keep pushing your dog if you think it may be something more than just the dog is reluctant to get on you. Some dogs they just don't really like jumping up on people. They're a lot more calm, or they feel like they could hurt you. So basically that's it. All of it is pretty simple. There are a few health issues that I would be concerned about. Definitely watch out for those things. And jumping up and even tucking, you can kind of see those different kind of joint issues that may be starting to develop. Even in young dogs, some people think that hip dysplasia can't appear in young dogs. That's not true. Even puppies as young as Mazikeen have showed symptoms and even had the hip displaced. So even though your dog may not be that old, hip dysplasia can still be caught at the age of 2 years old when you usually would do the health testing for mobility dogs. You should do it anyways for a service dog because you can tell then that they have hip dysplasia. If you have any problems with it, go ahead and let me know in the comment section. Questions, comments, concerns, go in the comment sections. I think that's everything. So as always, we love you.